But James Paterson, let me bring you back in on this one. Now, I was talking to Senator Zed Zeldra a little earlier, and he was expressing his concerns about the whole issue of negative gearing and not only the Labor policy, he was also expressing sort of potential concerns on the backbench about something that the Liberals might come up with. If you remember, it was Senator Zed Zeldra and others, a number of whom were on this program, who expressed concerns about the GST, which is now dead, buried and cremated. Can you see a backbench revolt developing, James Paterson, on the issue of negative gearing changes?
Well, I think both the government and the opposition should tread very carefully here. There's about 1.2 million Australians who use negative gearing, and overwhelmingly they are middle-class Australians. As Scott Morrison himself has pointed out in the past, some of the most common professions of people who negatively gear are policemen and teachers. These are not necessarily wealthy people, and they are not gaming the system. They are just trying to get ahead for themselves, investing for themselves and their family. And I think it's a perfectly reasonable thing that if they've made an investment and they're making a loss on that investment, that they not have to pay tax on that loss. So that's offset from their tax. That's a reasonable thing. The whole
Are you concerned though, James
really
Paterson? Let me just ask you, are you concerned about possible changes fiddling with negative gearing that could come from the coalition side when they unveil their policy?
I would urge caution. I think the key thing here, Peter, is that we're spending too much time talking about revenue. The federal government is too focused, or appears to be too focused, on revenue, when we know that the critical issue facing the federal budget is spending. We're spending way above historical averages. We're spending at the same level now that we were spending at the height of a global financial crisis. We have to get spending back down to normal levels. Revenue is actually above the 40-year long-term average. Revenues are about what you'd expect the federal government to be receiving and about what the federal government will receive unless there's a big spurt of economic growth. So there's not much you can do to change that other than tax increases, which will have a negative effect on the economy. So really the focus has to shift back to the spending side. It's good that the GST is off the table. Negative gearing, I think, largely should be off the table too.